Hi, I'm Mike Lowe for Op Digital Camera, and this is our review of the Olympus Pen PL3 compact system camera. It's also known as the Pen Lite, and it sits below the EP3 model. It's said to have the world's fastest autofocus system, so we're going to take a look in greater detail at what this camera has to offer. There are one or two big improvements over the previous EPL2 that the EPL3 offers. The first is the super fast autofocus system, which is a big plus point, and the second being the metal body, which you can see here. It's a much more quality finish than its predecessor, and the only downside that we can really see is the front is slightly slippery and has no grip to make holding the camera all the easier. On the rear of the camera there's a 460K dot 3-inch LCD screen which is mounted on a tilt angle bracket, which means it can rotate 45 degrees downwards or almost 90 degrees upwards for waist level overhead shots. We like the bracket, but the one issue with the screen is the fact that it's a 16:9 ratio, which means when you're shooting 4:3 stills you get these black borders down the side, and therefore the image only measures around about 2.5 inches across rather than the 3 inches that could be provided. This would have benefit in movie mode, obviously when shooting in the 16:9 ratio, but when you press the movie button to jump into the movie mode, it uses a slightly different area of the sensor, and this causes the image to jump into a different crop, and therefore having a 16:9 ratio even for pre-composing a movie shot also has limited benefit. Above the screen there's a TTL hot shoe, and there's also an AP2, which is accessory port 2 fitting, which means that an electronic viewfinder can be added to this camera should you so wish. Although the EPL3 removes the flash that the EPL2 had on the body, it does come with a hot shoe mounted flash that you can put onto the camera at any time that you so wish. As well as that, the EPL3 is also capable of wireless flash control, which for a camera of this type for around £500 is a very advanced feature to have indeed. In use, and the EPL3 is indeed very impressive, the fast autofocus system, which Olympus claims to be the world's fastest, is extremely quick indeed. The only time this becomes problematic, however, is when put into the subject tracking mode. It'll initially find the subject with no problem, but then as the subject moves between depths, the contrast detect focusing system does struggle to keep up with it. A top speed continuous burst mode of 5.5 frames per second means that EPL3 makes light work of successive snapping, though this is limited to 4.1 frames per second if the image stabilization system is activated. Movie mode also sees a reworking. While the ability to shoot motion JPEG AVI files is still possible, a new 1080i Full HD AVCHD option captures at 60 films per second. It also has all the manual control that the EPL2 also had. With the very same sensor and processing engine as the Olympus EP3, the quality from the EPL3 is an identical match and decent overall. ISO 200 is the camera's lowest sensitivity, with no option for an ISO 100 being a bit of a disappointment. However, shots are sharp and defined up until ISO 400, or there's a slight dip in sharpness at ISO 800 due to processing. In lab tests, finer detail diminishes at ISO 1600, and this progresses further at ISO 3200. Colour noise is only a subtle background hint from ISO 1600 and above, though at ISO 6400 it becomes more noticeable, and by ISO 12800 a wash of red colour noise is quite problematic. Overall, the EPL3's images are impressive from a Micro Four Thirds sensor size. For around £550, the EPL3 isn't a cheap compact system camera, then you do get a lot for your money, including the metal body and that super fast autofocus system. In fact, there's very little not to like about the EPL3, except perhaps for that 3-inch LCD screen which shoots 4:3 ratio images at 2.5 inches when you're looking at them in preview. Other than that, the improvements to the movie mode over the EPL2 and the wireless flash control that makes this quite an advanced camera make it a decent purchase indeed. Overall, we gave it 88% and I recommend it award.